Well, this next piece, the next thing I thought is about the book that we are studying, Power Surge, and how it talks about discipleship. And I think that as we think seriously about discipleship, we get some inkling as to what it means to be following this king at least, this King Jesus. And certainly today's gospel reading puts it uncomfortably clear. And if you read anything about some of our Christian brothers and sisters, I wonder if they have ever heard Matthew 25, verses 31 through 46. For it is as we do it to the least that we do it to Jesus. It is how we take care of the most marginalized, how we take care of the most vulnerable in our society that shows whether or not we are following Jesus as King. Recently, within the last 2 or 3 weeks, a large group of theologians gathered, and they basically said, there are a lot of Christians that have ceased to be Christians, and we need to repent. We need to repent means to turn around, to go away from the direction you were going and into a new direction. Because they've said that we've strayed, too many Christians have strayed too far away, basically, from this teaching. We have separated how we treat others from our belief in God. And the scripture tells us very clearly that how we treat others is the true revelation of how we think about God and treat God. Now, this is also called Good Shepherd Sunday. And as I was listening to the readings this morning about the Good Shepherd, I have to tell you a kind of a two-part story. I grew up in St. Paul's, Lansing, after the age of 5, because we didn't go to church before then. That's a different story. But at St. Paul's, Lansing, over the altar, there's first of all a wooden sculpture that is John and Mary, and I think there's another disciple, probably Peter, and Jesus on the cross, but in a crown, with a crown on his head and what looks like a chasuble. That kind of cross is called a Christus Rex, Christ the King. Rex is king. The Christus Rex is the preferred cross of us Anglicans. Isn't that interesting, since we come from England, Anglican, where they had a king. And the reason it is the preferred cross is our whole mindset is on how we respond to Christ as the King of our life. We're not dismissive of the crucifix, Christ crucified, and there are some denominations that's what they prefer, is Christ crucified. But that was done for us so that we could get beyond to understanding that Christ is our King. But above that, that's called a mirrorless. Above that is a very large stained glass window, not very well produced. It is probably the least in quality in that entire building. And St. Paul's has even more stained glass than you guys have. And much of it is very beautiful, and most of it was installed as I was growing up. And so, but this was always there. And this picture, this stained glass, is of a field with flowers in it, with clouds above it. A lot of, probably almost 2/3 of the window is probably clouds. And then in the center of the field is Jesus, robed pretty much like I am in all, because that was the common clothing of the day, with his hand hands extended out and holding them out like this. As a child, I always liked that window. And I remember my mother telling me one day that that window was created when one of the early rectors was dying. This was the vision he had. The vision of the Good Shepherd reaching out to him. When I experienced my father's death at 16, I remember I loved to go into that church to seek some peace and quiet. And I could literally sit there and stare at that window until in my imagination, I was free to run through those fields and run into those arms, and they would close around me in a hug. I think that's a fairly common desire for all of us in times of stress, to just have loving arms put around us. And I loved that. But soon, a second part of that vision or that imagination came to me. And as I was standing there, hugging back, I slowly felt Jesus' hands release me, put his hands on my shoulders, and turn me around. So I was facing as Jesus was, out into the world. I am so grateful for that imagination, because so many of us good Christians never get beyond the being held in the loving arms of Jesus. To understand that the reason that Jesus puts his arms around us, protects us, loves us, and cares for us is so that Jesus can turn us around and we can reach our arms out to the world. Now, in some places, it's quite easy to reach our arms out to the world. All Saints Pontiac, it's the official church, except I'm almost always here, that I go to, is right in the middle. Well, it's on the edge of downtown Pontiac, but it is filled, the neighborhood is filled with people that are living in rooms, that are renting rooms. It is filled with people who've recently gotten out of prison, filled with immigrants, filled with the mentally ill, some of whom are in group homes, many of whom are just sort of wandering the streets without help. Which is why All Saints Pontiac started the vegetable market, so that people could buy fresh fruits and vegetables, because you can't inside the city of Pontiac. They started a resale shop as part of the rummage sale to provide goods to people at a reasonable price. And then they started about 2.5 years ago, a community breakfast. And it started out with about 20 people on a good Saturday. It was Saturday morning, because they had researched and found out that nobody served breakfast on Saturday morning, and people need food. Last Sunday, because I wasn't here, I was actually at church at All Saints Pontiac. They had served 156 people breakfast that morning. The vast majority of those people do not go to the produce market because they do not have any place to cook food. Their room at the most might have a hot plate, but it might not even have that. They generally are going from place to place that is serving food. They like coming to All Saints Pontiac because we don't have so many rules, and they can stay and visit after they finish eating. And so it has become a place where they can spend their Saturday morning talking and visiting with others, being cared for, and then go on with their day. Now, in the early days, I used to volunteer. I quit volunteering because the particular team I was working with, they thought they needed to be there before anybody was standing in line. And when they started that you need to be there at 5 a.m., the pitch black, I said, not me. Because you see, they didn't understand that we could open up at 6 o'clock and there would be people standing line at 5 o'clock to get in. And it didn't matter that we were going to feed everybody that came. That's the way they had to live their life, waiting in lines. Go to Social Security, you wait in a line. You go to get identification, you wait in a line. You go to get assistance, you wait in a line. Wherever they went, they waited in lines. And so what do you mean we don't need to wait in line? Now, fast forward to my own personal family, love them. But they also drive me crazy. And the thing they drive me craziest about is holidays. Yeah, you know, I mean, I've read all the stuff about how holidays are high stress time in families. And what does that mean? Yeah, well, okay. So, our biggest thing, and bless all of them, but basically of my 2 siblings and their spouses, I am the only one that mentally and physically can still produce a meal for 15 or more people. And I have one nephew who actually had Thanksgiving. And I have one niece who lives in the area who could have meals and has sometimes. But none of the rest, my other 2 nephews aren't capable. They don't have houses, basically. So, you know, you can't very well go to their place. The one does have a house, but he's in New Jersey. You know, I'm not about to trek to New Jersey for Thanksgiving, so that's kind of out. So to me, it's quite simple. Either I have Thanksgiving, Jason has Thanksgiving, or Terry has Thanksgiving. But this seems to be, we can spend weeks discussing this. And we can work all kinds of machinations out. And last year, I had Christmas, and I may have even shared this, but, you know, my great-nephew was on time. My brother called to say they weren't coming. My sister called when they were supposed to arrive to say they would be an hour later than that. They were 2 hours later than that. My niece arrived 2 hours after that, and my nephew arrived 2 hours after that. And somewhere in there I had thought we were going to be eating food, and so I had dried out ham, well done mashed potatoes, and I'm not sure what else. So I thought, you know, this is stupid for me to keep trying to do this. Well, I put the 2 together, and what I said to my family and announced, and I just was on a phone conversation while you were playing the prelude, because my niece thought that 10 o'clock on Sunday morning would be a good time to call me. But I said, everybody's invited to my house between the hours of 3 and 7. Come whenever you want. Everything's going to be in crock pots, and that's it. No talking. Because that's the part I can't deal with. Except, make a donation to this community breakfast. And it's fascinating because immediately they get, well, how much should we give? I don't know. I could make some suggestions, but I won't. And finally I said, well, you know, if you were to bring a dish to pass, you'd probably spend at least $10. So let's say give at least $10. Is that okay? You know? And I don't know how many, you know, and I won't even go into some of them, because only my family, well, no, because every family can do it. But anyway, I figured we no longer exchanged presents. It was becoming too difficult to even get together. The only way I could figure out we were going to ever see each other again was if I made it simple and easy. And that if I was doing that, maybe I could get them to open their arms or their checkbooks a little bit. So, Christ as our King says that I can't just cut them off, much as I some days feel like I wish I could, because they are beloved children of God, just like I am. And they need help in a different way, but just as much as those people that are served Saturday morning breakfast. Their needs may be more needs of the soul and the heart, but they are still needy. And you and I, as Christians, are called to think of and imagine and come up with strange and unusual ideas to try to teach them to open their arms a little to others. All the while also monitoring ourselves for when we are starting to close our arms to others. Christ as King means we know who we belong to. We know the end of the story of our life, and it is victorious. And we know what our King expects of us each and every day towards each and every person we encounter. And that is a mighty awesome task. To remember that how we treat the least person that comes into our life is the real reflection of how we treat God and how valuable God is in our lives.